Senator Tom Cotton was among the first lawmakers to raise the red flag on China's burgeoning military on this program. He joins us now. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Maria. Good to be on with you.
Let's start with these sanctions. What was your takeaway of what we saw this past week as China is now targeting additional individuals in America?
Maria, these sanctions against former Trump administration officials are a dangerous and insidious escalation of China's effort to influence American policy. On Wednesday, just moments after Joe Biden took office, a couple dozen Trump administration officials were sanctioned by China. Now, at first, one might just laugh them off. I was sanctioned last summer, and I kind of laughed it off. But these sanctions apply not just to these individuals. They apply to any company or institution that associates with them. Now, this is not designed so much to punish Trump administration officials for taking a tough line on China, but to send a shot across the bow to Biden administration officials. Just let me give you a couple of examples of how these could influence a U.S. government official's thinking. So, for instance, many former officials like to write memoirs, and those memoirs can contribute to our understanding of public events. China specifically threatened publishing houses that give book contracts to administration officials they've sanctioned with cutting off all access for all their books from the Chinese market. Or to take another example, a lot of government officials are lawyers. They leave big firms, they go back to big firms. Even if they have no clients with any business in China, that law firm probably does. And what if China goes to one of those big corporations and threatens to cut off their access if they don't cut off that law firm? This is the kind of unspoken, insidious effect these sanctions can have on senior government officials. We cannot tolerate it. The Biden administration needs to denounce it forcefully. They need to impose reciprocal sanctions on Chinese officials. They need to find out if the Chinese ambassador was involved in it. And if so, they need to kick him out of the country. We cannot tolerate China trying to influence government officials at the highest levels of American government.
Well, it's interesting. You've got people like Peter Navarro being sanctioned. Take note, no sanctions on Jared Kushner, Wilbur Ross, or Stephen Mnuchin, correct?
That's correct, Maria.
Yeah. Let me ask you about where this goes from here. I mean, you say that the Biden administration has to come out strong and make sure that China gets the message that we will not roll over with their bullying, the way they're bullying the rest of the world in the South China Sea and in Hong Kong. But have we heard from President Biden yet in terms of China's role, for example, in the coronavirus?
No, Maria. In fact, I haven't heard almost anything directly from President Biden. Now, some of his officials have made some comments about China. For instance, Anthony Blinken, the incoming Secretary of State, said he agreed with Secretary Pompeo's designation of China as a genocidal regime for what they're doing to religious minorities in their northwestern province of Xinjiang. But what we really need to hear is from the top. President Biden needs to condemn these sanctions. He needs to condemn the actions that China is taking against Hong Kong in the South China Sea, just recently threatening Taiwan again. It's important that the president say that, not just the president's spokesman, not just his cabinet officials, but the president himself.
Yeah, we have not heard Joe Biden acknowledge where COVID came from, for example. I'll be interested in hearing what he has to say in terms of COVID. And you made this point on this program many times that the CCP knew when they learned that this disease was as deadly as it was, they allowed it to escape their borders, correct? We haven't heard anything like that from Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's right, Maria. It was a year ago this month when I was trying to ring the alarm about this virus that was creating an unknown kind of pneumonia in Wuhan. The rest of Washington was obsessed with the impeachment trial. Obviously, we're now still in the midst of a deadly global pandemic. I think all the evidence, it's circumstantial, but all the evidence continues to point to the Institute of Virology in Wuhan as the source of this virus, not some food market in Wuhan. That China is covering that up, just like they covered up for weeks how deadly this virus was, and let what could have been a local health challenge in Wuhan in the middle of China turn into the deadliest global pandemic in a century.
Yeah, and former DNI John Ratcliffe has a letter accusing career analysts and Congress of underplaying the Chinese influence in the 2020 election as well. I want to get your take domestic issues as well, Senator. This week is a big week. You will get sworn in, but you also have some things to vote on. Tell me about what you're expecting this upcoming week, as Nancy Pelosi is asking to keep National Guard troops in place at the Capitol all the way until mid-March. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's right, Maria. And I don't think that's necessary. Look, I'm on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I've consulted with Senate leadership. I'm not aware of threat reporting that suggests we need 7,000 troops in razor wire around the Capitol. What happened on January 6th was in part the failure of the senior security leaders on Capitol Hill to anticipate the kind of violence we saw from the mob that broke into the Capitol on the 6th. There was chatter about that on social media, yet they didn't request enough backup from the FBI or the Park Police and the National Guard. Muriel Bowser, the left-wing mayor of Washington, D.C., declined to let the National Guard that was present be armed and prepared for riot equipment. Then we had a major reaction, one might say an overreaction, of bringing 26,000 National Guard troops in for January 20th inauguration. But the inauguration is behind us. These troops did a great job. I respect their service. They deployed on short notice, but it's time to send home the troops. If there is threats,
yeah.
if the threat reporting warrants it, we can always bring troops back, but we don't need to turn the people's house, the center of our republic, into an armed camp.
Senator, how will you vote going into this week? You will be voting on Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary. You will also get an article of impeachment. Lay out the week for us. And by the way, we should mention that on day one, Joe Biden got the United States back into the World Health Organization as well. Your reaction there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a misguided decision to go back into the World Health Organization. They have largely been carrying water for China for the last year. Reporting since the early days of this pandemic has made that clear. On the impeachment trial, I made it absolutely clear the day the House passed its article of impeachment that a trial after the president has left office is beyond the Senate's constitutional authority. I think a lot of Americans are going to think it's strange that the Senate is spending its time trying to convict and remove from office a man who left office a week ago. That's not the role of impeachment. Impeachment's designed to remove a current office holder from office. I suspect that the president's attorneys, at some point, if they don't go to court, will come to the Senate with a motion to dismiss as this trial is beyond our constitutional authority. The more I talk to other Republican senators, the more they're beginning to line up behind the position I announced a couple weeks ago.
And you said the biggest issue of the week was on immigration. We just spoke with Chad Wolf about that. Your thoughts on what you saw in terms of the border actions this past week?
Well, Joe Biden basically announced to the entire world that it's ollie ollie oxen free at our border. He stopped construction of the border wall. And he said that we're going to resume allowing people showing up at our border, making bogus claims of asylum, to come into the country, to be released, to come back, perhaps, probably not, for a hearing months or years later. Look, we had a very strong agreement with Mexico, which was keeping these migrants in Mexico while their asylum claims could be adjudicated. For no reason, Joe Biden tore up that agreement. And now we're going to see yet another surge at the border. You already see some caravans coming through Central America. I suspect that they're going to get much larger very soon.
Well, I mean, look, it's up to you and your colleagues to stop some of this policy if you think it's bad. Are you going to be able to? Or will they get this entire progressive agenda through?
No, the bill that Joe Biden sent last week, I think, will be dead on arrival. It's far to the left of any immigration bill the Congress has considered. It would flood the labor markets with millions of unskilled migrants, whether they're here presently as illegal aliens or they're rushing to the border now. That would be terrible for working class Americans, taking their jobs away or driving their wages down.
Senator, it's good to see you this morning. We'll keep following the story. Thank you, sir. Senator Tom Cotton joining us there.